Hello, my name is Kays and welcome to another episode of Kays Labs. So what did the cat drag in this time? Well, it's the mighty Roland JX-10, also known as the Super JX. Now this keyboard was introduced around 1986 and I think Roland kept producing them until around 1989. And it is widely regarded as the last analog synthesizer that Roland produced in the 80s before moving on to the so-called romplers such as the D50, the JD800, the JB1080, and so on and so forth. Super JX is essentially comprised of two JX8P boards kind of put together into the same synth with a 76-note keyboard and a few additional bells and whistles here and there. However, many people feel that it doesn't quite sound like the JX8P exactly. There are some subtle but noticeable differences between the two synthesizers. I'll let you determine which one sounds better and which one sounds worse out of the two. But nonetheless, we can all agree that the Roland JX-10 is a bit of a monster of a synth. It's like 12 voice polyphony, 2 DCO per voice. It's got like a built-in chorus. And this particular unit does turn on, but I can't get past the initial screen. It appears to be frozen right now. So let's take a closer look and figure out if we can see what might be happening to cause this behavior, and hopefully we're gonna get around to fixing it. So stay tuned and let's explore the Roland JX-10. Oh my God, I'm on my widest setting on my phone and I can barely get the entire keyboard in. This thing is positively huge. 76-note keybed plus, of course, like 2 side panels to make it even wider. This thing is quite a monster. This is the Roland JX-10, also known as the Super JX. And I'm very, very excited about the synth. This is officially the first Roland synthesizer that I've ever owned my entire life, so this is cool. Let's find out what is wrong with it. So I have it hooked up to the power and I have it hooked up to my speaker. I'm just going to turn it on and see what happens. Okay, I mean, this is a good sign that we're getting the display to work, because these things sometimes fail and it can be quite tricky to fix. So the display is working, at least it looks like it's working, but we're kind of stuck here, okay? Like by now, the firmware should have booted up in memory and we should be good to go and we should be able to hear some sounds, but I can't hear any sounds and this thing just appears to be stuck in place. And when I first got it, I tested it and I was able to actually kind of get it to get past this boot up screen and play some sounds, but then the presets didn't want to switch. And anyway, there's definitely some stuff that's kind of funky that's preventing this synth from fully working. What I need to do is open it up and take a look inside, and I have some suspicions as to what might be causing all of this kind of weird behavior. But I'm not gonna know until I take a look inside, so let's take a look inside. Alright, so to open up the JX-10, I had to take out 2 screws on the underside here, and then there are like 3 screws on this side and 3 screws on the other side. By taking those out, we should be able to kind of lift the whole top up, and up it goes. This is so wonderful. I love when the top panel is on hinges and I can easily lift it up. This is so much better than the Korg DW series, which is a nightmare to get into. The inside looks pretty clean, I have to say. It doesn't look like anybody's been poking around here, so that's always a good sign. I think where I want to start is the power supply and take a look at what voltages are coming out of the power supply. And the other place that I want to take a look at is the voltage here for like the memory battery. This battery is responsible for all the memory for the internal presets and settings. So I want to take a look at what kind of charge it has. So I'm going to start from there. that surprises me. So I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but I'm getting like a pretty decent 3.3 volts from the battery. I thought for sure that this thing would be completely dead, but it's actually outputting a decent amount of voltage. Memory battery is fine. Let's take a look at the voltages and kind of see a little bit what might be happening there. Alright, so let's take a look here. Some of these voltages. First one, 15.2. I mean, it's a little high, but it's not crazy. Negative 15.2, also not crazy. The other two should be ground right here. What else here? Yeah, 15.2. Should be negative 15.2. Ground. Let's see here. This is ground also, and this is 5-volt rail, also pretty close to where it's supposed to be. Then I got like 10 volts, 10.2. I need to check the spec sheet here to see. Yeah, I mean, voltages don't look bad at all. I mean, I think that's basically where it's supposed to be. So, just kind of keep poking around. And those are probably all going to be like 5. So yellow is 5. Purple is this 10.2. But yeah, like the voltage looks good. So, not really seeing any problems there. As I said, the battery is good too. After doing a bit more kind of like checking out investigation with this JX-10, I'm beginning to suspect that maybe it's the button switches. The reason why is because if I kind of like keep pushing them, the preset will switch. So maybe the switches themselves are just really bad. I mean, it's a little bit of like a, yeah, there you go, you know, like it's kind of working and then it doesn't work. So I ordered some new switches for all of these buttons. So I'm going to start by replacing all of these, which live on the same board. Here, let me just kind of open it up. And this is not going to be fun to get to, but unfortunately. So all of these button switches are right here, okay, on this board that's underneath this other smaller board, which is this assigner board, which is kind of sort of like the CPU. So what I need to do is I need to carefully remove this guy and then get to this larger board and take it out and slowly start replacing all the switches and see where that gets me. Hopefully replacing the switches will deal with the issue unless there's something else going on. Okay, so these are the switches that I'm going to be using, and these are made by Omron, and they're just like 12 millimeter by 12 millimeter square tact switches that are 4.3 millimeter high. I got them from Mauser, so this is the Mauser part number, and that's what they are. So, you know, if you want to order some, now you know. So, okay, let's start the process. There's quite a bit of them, so I got 60. There's, I think, about like 55 or something like that on the synth. So, but I'm just going to start with the ones on this board. I'm not going to worry about like the ones on this side for right now. I'm just going to start with the stuff that doesn't work and then go from there. Oh my god, you can always tell how much a synth company wants people to get on the inside and mess around with things by how difficult it is to get to all of the various components. I kind of sort of was able to get this control board in this condition. I don't want to disconnect some of these ribbon cables. They're very fragile. I also had to like take this guy out so I could kind of flip it over and take a closer look. It's not the easiest thing to work on, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to just see if I can actually replace the buttons without necessarily disconnecting everything, and see how that goes. It's gonna be a little tricky, but hopefully I'm gonna be able to do it. Okay, so I haven't replaced the buttons yet. I mean, those are all the switches, but I just wanted to show you something. So these are the new switches, and these tach switches, they have like 4 pins on the back. On one side they're like wider, and then on the other side they're a little bit narrow. And the way they work is that the narrow side, the side where like the pins are narrow. Here, let me see if I can actually do this with one hand. Oh my God. So these guys don't normally connect until I push it, and now they make contact, okay? On the long side, they're always connected, so you get continuity this way. But on where the pins are closest to each other, you don't until you push the button, which is what I'm doing. Okay. So that's how a tach switch basically works. It's an on when you push it down, off when you release it. As you can see, like these guys are basically the same configuration. We have like 2 pins that are close to one another, and then the ones that are on opposite sides, okay? So if I put, let me see if I can do this with one hand. So if I put like one probe of my multimeter on one side and one probe on the other, and I push, I should be getting continuity. I should be getting a beeping, but I'm not. So that tells me that these switches are bad. Yeah, see, I'm pushing, and these 2 guys are supposed to make contact, but they're not. So that's a bit of a problem. Let me try the other side just to be extra sure. No, there's nothing. So this is possibly a good sign, right? Because I mean, as I suspect, if it is these switches, I can just kind of swap them out with some new ones, and hopefully when I do that, I'll be able to change presets and kind of get this synth working completely. So let me do that. It's going to be a pain in the butt because, as you can see, there's quite a bit of them, and then there's several others on this other board. I'm not going to worry about those quite yet. I need to kind of see, kind of get like a bit of a proof of concept that my theory is correct, and that switching these little switches, switching the switches, it's going to fix my problem. So I'm going to start there and replace all of these guys, and then if that works, then I'm just going to go ahead and replace those guys as well while I'm at it. Oh my God, that took forever and a day as well, and hopefully I didn't forget to solder any of the little pins to the back. I think I got everything. So if my theory is correct, and if I did my job well, then replacing the switches should allow me to operate the synthesizer the way it's intended. So there's only one way to find out. I'm gonna hook it up and switch it on, and let's see here. Okay, display comes on. That's a good thing. It's going through its boot up routine. Okay, and now this is where we got at the beginning. So let's see if I can change preset. Ha! Look at that. That's great. That is great. So everything is the way it's meant to be working. This is awesome. So I can switch the presets. It was the button switches that just went bad. So with that knowledge, I'm going to go ahead and replace those guys as well while I'm at it, and then put everything back together and give it a nice test. One of the things that I did want to point out while I have this board out is that sometimes some of these JX-10s, the display is failing or doesn't work at all. And I just wanted to kind of show you this little component right here, okay? So this guy, 9 times out of 10, is the reason why the display is not working. So hopefully keeping my fingers crossed, like there's no problems on this particular JX-10, especially because these guys tend to be quite expensive to find online. But yeah, let's just keep that in mind. If you're having problems with your display and it's not working, there's a pretty good chance that you need to replace this guy right here, this little button looking thing. Okay, so all the switches have been replaced on both boards, and I was getting ready to put everything back together, but then I had one nagging question. And that is, if you've been watching this channel, I mean, you know, pretty much every synth that I've worked on typically needs this tact switches replaced. Just because, you know, after like 40 plus years, you know, they start kind of getting grungy one way or another. And, you know, they'll just kind of stop working, you know, like they're not like really designed to last forever. But typically, you know, they just kind of get this kind of annoying thing where you have to like push them like 2 or 3 times to get them to register, but they do work, right? I've never really ran into a situation where so many of these tact switches would just kind of simply not work at all. That to me is a little bit weird. Like basically none of these guys were working. None of these guys were really working. I mean, you know, did Roland use like particularly crappy tact switches to begin with? Is that what happened? And then I started looking at these guys right here. So what these guys are is just like a little bit of thin foam that sits right underneath the buttons. So like between the buttons on the front surface and the switches, there's like a little bit of foam, just a little bit of padding, okay? And when I went to kind of like, you know, like feel this stuff, it's like really, really brittle. I mean, especially like on this side where these switches were not working, this stuff is like practically cracking and falling apart as I touch it. And I started wondering, what if the reason why so many of these guys are so messed up is because with the age and this stuff getting all dry, it starts kind of, you know, basically kind of dropping little particles inside, you know, the teeny tiny gaps of these switches. And, you know, after a few years, these guys are gone. So I think that before I put everything back together, I should try to replace this little padding here before it does damage to the new switches. And thankfully, my wife just happened to have this, which is this really thin foam. You could probably buy this like at a craft store. And I mean, it's a little bit thinner than this stuff by a hair, but I think it's gonna work. So what I'm gonna do is maybe kind of start with this guy right here and just kind of carefully try to line it up and cut it down to size. And then I guess I gotta poke these 2 holes here and, you know, and then put it back and hopefully that works. And then I'll do the same thing with these guys and that guy. And hopefully this is going to make sure that these switches continue working for a long time. All right, so the new foam is in, and I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna be, it's not pretty, but I think it's gonna do the job, and it seems to fit nicely. There was one other thing that I wanted to do, which is this this cover for like the display, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's just a little loose. And ideally, I would like to be able to open it up and see if I can, I don't know, maybe put like some double sticky tape or something like that to just kind of keep it in place. But it's got like these plastic little tabs that are holding the cover in place, and to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure how they work, and I'm a little bit worried that I'm gonna break something off. So I'm just gonna leave it as it is for right now, and I'm not gonna worry about it. And I don't know, eventually I'll maybe read up online and see what the safest way would be to open this guy up. But I think for right now, even though it's a little loose, it'll be okay. All right, so the PCBs are back in place, and I think I'm ready to close this bad boy up and run it through one final test. Now, before I close it up, I was thinking maybe I should recap the power supply, but quite honestly, it looks good. The electrolytic capacitors don't look weird. The voltage is solid. I mean, at this point, I am just kind of leaning towards leaving it alone. As I said, if it ain't broke and it doesn't look like it's about to break, I say just leave it alone. Anything else that I might do to this keyboard, maybe at some point I might kind of clean out the sliders that are controlling like these parameters. But I mean, you know, once again, when I tested them, like it wasn't like they were like bad or anything like that. I mean, in general, this entire keyboard looks really good. So I'm just kind of leaning towards calling this done and keeping my fingers crossed that just replacing the button switches was all that was required. We're back together. We're getting sound out of it. All of the buttons work now. I'm so thrilled. And I was really worried that maybe it might be something else, because it's really unusual for all of these switches to fail simultaneously. But once I got in there, I tested the old tack buttons, and indeed I verified that they were not making contacts when you press them. And that was it. And I still stand by my theory that maybe that weird foam that's in between the buttons, the surface, and the actual switches, after it got all dried up and rotted and started peeling off all sorts of weird dust particles in there, I think that contributed to these buttons or the switches stopped working. All right, we did it. We fixed the Roland JX-10. It's now fully working. I'm very, very thrilled with it. And I have to say, as far as repairs are concerned, this was relatively straightforward to diagnose and fix. I wish they were all like that. Unfortunately, I have like some other synths that I'm repairing that are quite tricky just to diagnose and figure out exactly what's going on, but that's for another video. In the meantime, what I wanted to mention is that I ordered a special firmware upgrade for the Roland JX-10 from this gentleman called, I think like Frederick Vejkoven, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And this is a custom firmware that he did for the Roland JX-10 that adds quite a bit of interesting functionality to the synth, as well as expands the preset's memory. So I will be making a follow-up video as soon as I receive the new firmware and install it, so that you can all see what this new custom firmware does for the JX-10. And also stay tuned for an upcoming jam video where I will be sharing with you all the wonderful sounds that the JX-10 is capable of producing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.